Yo, so Russell Brand's been trending a lot, and he's got like a lot of different allegations and stuff. I came across this video where he's basically having a conversation about trauma and addiction, or how basically a addiction can lead to trauma. I find it to be very interesting, especially with some of the accusations being rooted from Russell Brand's sex addictions. So I wanted to just go over it and have an interesting conversation and go from there. So let's check it out.
If you're not an addict yourself, you know someone who's suffering from the disease of addiction. And of course, the reason we're doing this is because it's Addiction Week. We're drawing attention, raising attention to the subject of addiction. But for me, every day is Addiction Day. Every week is Addiction Week. Add the month or year or whatever. If I get to December the 13th, I'll be 20 years clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. And it's because of the support of groups, a set of principles and mentors like Gabor that I'm able to stay clean. In this part of the conversation, Gabor talks about trauma, which is an aspect of addiction and alcoholism that's often overlooked. He talks about the nature of the behaviours. He looks at what addiction does for the person. And I must say, it's a fantastic conversation. If you want to see it in full, join us over on Stay Free AF. But please enjoy this part of the conversation.
Now, it seems like you're willing and able to underwrite the more complex aspects of mental health diagnosis with these physical examples. What else are you demonstrating in your book, The Myth of Normal? I know because I've read bits of it, well, the bits where my name's in it. I've read loads of it. What else are you talking about when it comes to like addiction and mental health and the social and political aspect of these conditions?
Yes. So, again, the addiction assumption in society in general is that it's a choice that people are making. In fact, the whole legal system is based on the assumption that people are choosing to behave in certain ways, consciously choosing. So they're consciously choosing to become addicted to illegal substances. That's the assumption in the legal system. Therefore, I argue that when we call it a criminal justice system, it's a really good name for it. It's a criminal justice system because it's criminally stupid in its assumptions. I've never met anybody, and I've worked with really hardcore substance users, who actually woke up one morning and said, "Oh, my ambition is to become a drug addict." That's the first point. Second point is that the medical assumption that we're dealing with an inherited brain disease is equally false. So that there's very little evidence, despite what they say, for any genetic causation of addiction. What we're really looking at, and let's just do a little experiment here. I'll give you a definition of addiction and get you to participate. I'm speaking to the audience here and also to my interviewer. I'll define addiction as manifested in any behavior in which a person finds temporary pleasure or relief, but suffers negative consequences in the long term and doesn't give up despite the negative consequences. So pleasure, relief, and craving in the short term, harm, and inability to give up in the long term. Now notice I said nothing about drugs. I said any behavior. So it could be substances, cocaine, crystal meth, caffeine, nicotine, whatever, alcohol.
But it could also be, social media or, sex addictions, or it can be so many different things, which is why it's sort of, I think that for some people, the perspective of addiction is kind of limited. There's some things that I call casual addictions. It's where the things that we don't see as that big of a deal, or it's something that we do anyway. That's sort of a casual addiction, right? A casual addiction is something where I should do a whole video on it, really. I'll do that at some point. But a casual addiction is something that isn't as upfront in your face as, smoking, drinking, or something like that. Or, some type of heavy drug addiction. It's something that we normally do or is seen as okay. But it's actually destroying or eroding your future or your environment somehow. So, yeah, I'm with them on that one.
Well, heroin, yes. Also gambling, shopping, work, internet, gaming, extreme sports. The issue is not the behavior as such, it's the internal relationship to it. If there's craving, pleasure, and relief in the short term, harm in the long term, and you're not giving it up, you got an addiction. I don't care what to. So here's what I'm going to ask here from the audience is if by that definition you recognize that at one time or another you've had any kind of an addiction, just raise your hand. Okay. So what we've got here is the vast majority, if not everybody. Okay. Now here's what I'm going to ask you now. I don't know if this works for the podcast purposes. I'm going to ask some of you to tell me not what was wrong with your addiction, which you already know, but what was right about it. What did it give you in the short term that you craved, that you wanted?
We'll cover that later, right? Just for the structuring and production of our podcast,
Yeah.
because that is one of your great edicts and one of the what I would call Mate's maxims. That I've coined that. When analysing addiction, I talk I'm in a program of recovery. I talk to other addicts all of the time, and it's a very helpful tool to invite someone that is dealing with chemical dependency or any form of addiction. Don't don't assess the many negative consequences of addiction. Look at what it does for the addict, the positive purpose that it serves.
Right.
It's yours, and I like it. I use it all the time, and I usually credit you for it, depending on if I'm trying to impress the person or not. When I'm with my own behaviours, I'm looking sometimes for connection, distraction, a sense of self-worth, validation, escape. These are all motivations.
So escape from what?
Pain.
Right. So hence my mantra, not why the addiction, but why the pain. And so what I'm saying is, just as you've articulately illustrated, the addictions, these qualities, connection, self-worth, pain relief, are they good things or bad things?
The good things.
Yeah. In other words, addiction, the addicted person just wants to feel like a normal human being. So addiction is neither a choice, nor is it a disease. It's an attempt to solve the problem.
Yeah, man. It is an attempt to solve the problem, but it's just the worst possible way to do it. And what's so crazy about this, and I'm going to get to this in future videos, is that our society as it is encourages solving our basic needs, our problems with acquiring the things that are core for us in the worst way possible, right? It encourages us to poison our future, in an attempt to feel normal, to feel whole. And it's constantly doing this all the time. And that's what's so disturbing. But that's future content. So, man.
And that problem is rooted in trauma. So once we recognize that, why are we judging people for desperately seeking to escape states of extreme emotional distress, isolation, disconnection, pain? So the addiction is not the primary issue. The primary issue is the trauma that induces the mind state from which the person needs to escape. And now if you look at it from the population and the political point of view, like for example under COVID, just to give a recent instance, alcoholism went up, addiction, drug use went up, all kinds of addictive behaviors went up. Why? Because when people are stressed and they have not the means to resolve their stress, they'll resort, amongst other things, to addictive behaviors. Now that has all kinds of political implications, because if you look at least in the United States, and I bet if you did a class analysis here in Britain of who's in jail because of addictions, addicted-related behaviors, in the States it's largely minority people by a huge disproportionate percentage. In Canada, 30% of the people in our jails are Indigenous people. 30% of my clients in the addicted area of Vancouver where I work were Indigenous people. They make up 4% of the Canadian population, 30% of the jail population, and Indigenous women make up 50% of the Canadian jail female population, 4% of the general population. What are we looking at? We're looking at historical oppression and trauma and ongoing racism. And that's what manifests in that need to escape. Now, does the medical profession take that into account? Does the legal profession even know about it? We just keep punishing people.
Whew, man, he's dropping bars in this video. So many bars have been dropped. I think he might be competing with Eminem or something. But yeah, it's like there's so many different things that connect to why somebody may seek addiction in various ways. And some of it is how our society is built, the different traumas that groups of people have endured, and their need to escape from that, their need to feel balanced within themselves, and that's when the worst possible options come forth. Like, hey, why don't you, drink this here? You know what I'm saying? It'll disconnect you from what you're feeling right now, right? Like, oh, okay, you're encouraged to engage and stuff, and it's really not helping the problem. It's just steeping it, damn near, or it's creating a whole new problem, right? And if you look into Russell Brand's history, he dealt with like a lot of trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had some very, very strange situations or whatever back when he was a kid. So it's I'm not surprised that he developed different addictions, sex addictions, drug addictions, stuff like that. I'm not surprised. Man.
For how we make them hurt. We're punishing people for how we made them suffer. And I bet in Britain here, if you did a class analysis of who's in jail, it's not going to be the upper crust.
So trauma is a pretty big thing. Addiction is, in some people, sort of an offshoot or extension of trauma. And I think that if within our society, if we can start to see that, make that connection, and not just treat the symptoms, then, maybe we can make some progress, right? I'm going to get into this more in a video that I've been putting together. Hopefully it's done soon. I might add some more things to it, but for the most part, I think I'm good on it. So yeah, if you like this particular video, just wait for that one. Ideally, it'll be done by the end of this week, because I got so much other stuff I'm trying to do. And yeah, I guess if you enjoyed this content, feel free to express yourself by the many means available on this page. Comment down below if you understand what I'm saying. If you got something to say, hit me. All right, have a good one.